Hey guys, this is Crap Hunter, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Woo! First of all, I would like to apologise for being late on the release day for my previous, the previous release day. Unfortunately, with my new job, work has become quite hectic, and unfortunately on that day, I wasn't able to do. Well, as soon as I got back from work, I didn't have much, if any, time to do anything. So unfortunately, sorry guys. I hope the two videos that we'll have today will be more than compensatory. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the review. So here we are, the M4A3E8 Sherman, or more commonly known in World of Tanks as the Easy 8 Sherman. She is a Tier 6 American medium tank, which stems from the M4, and she is a separate choice to the other M4A3E2. Lots of numbers and everything, it's crazy. Now, going into this tank, for those out there, I'm just going to tell you now, for those out there who love medium tanks, looking for a crazy, like, oh, this is going to be a great medium tank because I love the Cromwell and the 85, you're not going to see those kind of results with this vehicle. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're not. And it's not like, it's not because this thing is crap, it's just, it's kind of in a separate league to the Cromwell and the T-34-85, but it works well in its own sort of way. But I just thought I should let you guys know from the start about what this vehicle is capable of in comparison to such things as the T-34-85 or the Cromwell tank. So, sorry for all you Cromwell lovers out there. I mean, not to say that this, as I said, this vehicle isn't crap by any means standard. You know, it's an interesting vehicle to say the least. And we will be mentioning kind of a sort of link to the other vehicle as well, as there is a sort of link between these two vehicles, to a degree. So, hit points. You have 750. Now that's pretty average for a Tier 6 medium tank. That's pretty good. That's not bad. That's a pretty good amount of hit points. Certainly not. Certainly, you know, only means that you can take maybe one or two low damage roll shots from a KV-1S, but you know, it's better than nothing. Let's see how you fare against your counterparts. So the Chinese finally have access to medium tanks at the same level as us. I don't own this vehicle, but given how much hit points I got when I got the Easy 8, I'm going to say that one's probably the same. I think I've seen that at 750, so Type 58, 750. The French do not have anything. Deutschland actually has a fair amount. Let's have a look. See, the VK is VK 3001P. I have heard a bit. I did look up a couple of these things. So that one becomes 710. So you're better than that by about 40. The VK 3001D, I think, has way more hit points. I think it gets 840, so it beats you quite significantly, as well as the VK 3002M. Once again, it receives I mean, look, it already beats you off stock, so it already receives way more hit points. So Germany is very good for hit points, very good indeed, which is rather nice to see. Kind of. Well, no, it's nice to see that. It's certainly a little bit more relaxed. It's certainly better to see that than other stuff. I get the L71. Nice. Anyway. So, that's pretty awesome to see. If we go down towards Britain, I know the Cromwell has the same amount of hit points as you, so that's something you don't have to worry about. Your counterpart, I would assume, has the same amount. 730, so actually I don't know, I might be wrong. I might be correct in assuming that you might get more hit points or not, but I guess we'll go into why I wouldn't really upgrade the tank for another time. So I'm going to assume, no, I would say that you're better hit point wise than the M4A3 if you don't upgrade it, but I will talk about when I get that tank and upgrade it and use it for a while. I'll go into detail why I wouldn't upgrade it. The T-34-85, the very famous T-34-85, has 720 hit points at top, if I remember correctly, and the A-43, I have seen it, has also got, it has 730, my mistake. So Oh yes, and let's not forget about the Japanese. The Cheeto. Oh wow. I think they have like what 840 maybe. I think so. Yes, so 840. So a fair amount of tanks beat you, unfortunately. But that said, you're not really, a fair amount of medium tanks will beat you. So, it's not perfect by any means necessary. But that said, it's still a good amount of hit points, which will, it does help out when it comes to dealing with multiple foes. And as long as you know what to do and how to spare your hit points, generally speaking, you will survive. You will be able to survive a fair amount in game. Going on to weight and engine power, we have got a rather light vehicle, being at 30.67 tons with 3 equipment modules attached. You have a 520 horsepower engine, which gives you 48 kilometers per hour speed limit and a very nice 40 degrees of traverse speed. That's pretty cool. I mean, I like any vehicle with a high traverse speed, so this vehicle is already in my good books. It certainly is. It's pretty awesome to have. It may not be super fast as, say, the Cromwell or the T-3485, but a good driver, the traverse speed's awesome, and I haven't even got any cruise skills for my vehicle. So, for that to be there, it's more than adequate. It's more than adequate indeed. Certainly will help out when it comes to those tight-knit situations. Now, onto armor. You don't have much. Very poor armor, in fact. 63 to the front for the hull, and the same 38 to the sides and rear that the previous tank had. With the turret, I guess it's a case of good news, bad news. The good news is that the frontal armor of the turret is actually better than the original Sherman's turret, but the sides and rear being at 51 means that it's actually worse than the M4 Sherman's turret. The original, like the fully upgraded, it's crap. Quite crap, unfortunately. So any kind of high explosive, any kind of derp gun, artillery, it's gonna love you. I love seeing these vehicles in the battlefield when I'm driving my KV-2 or an SE-152. So you've got to be hyper aware of the fact that you will not, or you will very rarely bounce things. If you can figure out how to angle your vehicle, which I am still doing so, and I have on occasions bounced stuff, but it's very unlikely. It's unfortunate. But that said, you can manage with it. Any person who drives a medium tank is probably not expecting to have that much armor anyway. And this is kind of also where I'm going to start making a bit of to sort of highlight the link between the two Tier 6 American tanks, as it kind of seems rather evident to me with this one. Because you can see with the armor values of this vehicle, this one, as you've seen the speed limit and everything, this is the sort of faster, more mobile flanker tank, whereas this vehicle, the M4 Sherman Jumbo, is, you can see automatically. I mean, I don't own the vehicle, so I can't, say about the other some stuff. But I can say that this one is most definitely designed more as a slugger vehicle. I mean, the frontal armor of this thing alone would dictate that this thing's more of a slugger vehicle, being at 101 for the front, 76 to the side. So the frontal armor of the turret is on the side of this vehicle, and 38 to the rear, which is the same. The turret is absolutely troll, being at 152 all around. That is just ridiculous. I'm kind of wanting this vehicle now, just to see what it's like with this thing. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so you can see that this vehicle is certainly the slower, more armored type, and this vehicle is the faster but less armored type of this one. And how badly armoured is it? Well, let's go on to Tank Inspector to find out. So here we are on Tank Inspector, and here are the armour values for the Easy 8. Now, one thing I noticed about the Easy 8 upon entering into the Tank Inspector is that the Easy 8 gains a surprisingly good secret armour to the front of the vehicle as well. I had no idea this was there until I had flashed this up. If you haven't spotted it yet, it's this bit. It's the underglacius of the machine. Normally, this is a weak point for most tanks, but not the Americans. No, they want to make themselves different. The Underglacius actually has 101 millimeters of armor, and thanks to the amount of angling that this vehicle has, you're looking at an extra 30 millimeters, perhaps even to 40 millimeters worth of extra protection whilst with this vehicle. So if people, and luckily for you, not many people know this. Well, at least hopefully not many people will know this. Probably more after this video goes out, but whatever. Not many people know about this sort of strong point. So some people might aim for your lower region, lower glaciers, thinking, "Ah, I can get you now with my high explosive," and they fire, and it just poof, just disappears into nothing, and they're like, "Eh?" But yeah, so you can actually bounce off high explosive shells there. I mean, it's not much, but it's a nice thing to see with this vehicle. Going on to the second highest amount of armor, the turret armor. It's not much. It only covers the frontal section of the vehicle, but frontal section of the turret. But that said, it makes it rather a small target, and thanks to angling, may have a high chance of bouncing off. You are given another benefit of lots of spaced armor, alongside with the turret armor as well, so that helps out. But unfortunately, I've not really had too much experience being shot at the turret. Generally, everyone just goes for the hull shot with this thing. But if you are a person who likes utilizing the turret to their advantage, then this thing does have a fairly decent amount of armor for it, just mainly at the extreme angles. Going down the list, we now reach the hull armor frontally. It's not much, to be honest with you. At the frontal section, you're looking at about 80 millimeters of extra protection. One thing you can possibly do to extend your life is to angle your vehicle. But unfortunately, due to the lack of millimeters at the front, you're unlikely to do anything majorly effective. I mean, going around corners is probably your best bet of survival utilizing angling, because you need to go on an extreme angle before most of the tank will become insta-bounce. So if you can do that with your vehicle, brilliant. If you find yourself in a position where you can utilize that, absolutely fantastic. But probably your best bet is to just not show your hull armor to your opponent / not be shot at. Just get around them, try to avoid shells with this one. Going to the second before last bit of armor, you've got the sides and rear. No angling whatsoever, no protection whatsoever, absolutely bugger all else to say about it. It's basically high explosive hits this, you're dead. Simple and easy, no worries about that. Now, one thing you may have noticed is the fact that the rear doesn't cover this armor doesn't cover the entire rear of the vehicle. That's because this is the armor value for this section of the rear. That's right, 13 millimeters of armor. A Panzer 1C would love this. A tier 6 tank being brought to his knees by a tier 3 tank. It's ridiculous. But unfortunately, there you have it. This thing has a very weak engine. This is the engine compartment of the vehicle. I'm pretty sure that if someone tries to shoot at this, you will suffer engine damage, perhaps even flames. So be exceptionally careful when little light scout tanks go behind you. Utilize that traverse speed to your advantage and make sure they never see it. Anyway, let's take you back to the garage. So let's go now on to view range and signal range. For view range, you've got a pretty decent 370 meters. Do ignore the actual thing on the side. That's just some XVM stuff. This is the stats you've got to focus on. So 370 meters with a top fully upgraded stuff. That's pretty awesome. That's a pretty good view range for a medium tank. Let's see how you fare. Oh yes, and for signal range, you have 615. This is because you do get access to the tier 9 American radio, which is pretty good. Once again, it's not bad. It's for a tier 6 tank, tier 9 radio. That's pretty awesome. Let's go into let's have a look at your counterparts to see how they fare. The Type 58 with its fully upgraded turret will give you 370, so the same. With the Russian radio, crappy signal range. So you beat them by about 95. 95? No. You beat them by about 90, I think. Yeah, 90 roughly. French do not have any medium tanks. The VK3001P at full upgrade turret has the same view range. Unfortunately, however, for a lot of German tanks, Fug 12 makes its appearance known. 710 signal range, beating you by 95. That's where the 95 was popping in. So the VK3001P has the Fug 12, the VK3002M has the Fug 12. The view range, though, it is the same, 370. And of course, the VK3001D, I'm going to assume is the same. Yes, it is for the view range, and of course, Fug 12 as well. So Germany at the moment is currently in the lead when it comes to radio, but it's the same when it comes to view range. The Cromwell, Cromwell. Let's have a look at your view range. You have, oh wow, it only has 360, so you're 10 better than the Cromwell, which is pretty awesome. Their Tier 8 radio only gives them 550 signal range, so you're not exactly doing... The Cromwell doesn't have as good view range or signal range as the Americans. Shock horror. Obviously, the M4A3E8 has the same, so you don't have to worry about that. Neparuski. Well, we'll compare it anyway. So the A44 turret gives that vehicle 360, so only 10 worse than you. And this one has the same radio as the Chinese, so it's not as good as you. The T-34-85 has 360 view range, and it's terrible 9RM525. So for radios in Russia and view range, not as good as the Americans, but not by much, at least for view range. The Cheeto, let's have a look at your view range. You have less as well, 360. But, unfortunately, the Cheeto does gain access to this, the Type 3 Co radio, which is a Tier 10 model, and it gives them 750 signal range. So, but the weird thing with this radio is that it's only available for the Type 5 Chiri and the Keto. So, although it beats you, it doesn't actually beat you for long, whereas your radio kind of applies more to vehicles. So, to a degree, it's slightly better. I mean, stats-wise, it beats you hands down, but I guess your radio wins in the long run. Now, onto my favourite part of any review, the gun. Now, the EZ8 is an interesting tank because of this gun. Now, before we go into it, the only selection of guns that you really get to upgrade to, perhaps, is only one. The M4A3E8. In comparison to its counterpart, of which you'll have to research the turret to get to this gun, in comparison to its counterpart, experienced gunners will only note a few differences. First, the rate of fire is much better than the previous gun. You've still got the same penetration, only you've got slightly better accuracy, being at 0.4, and the fact that this gun is also equipped on the T-71 as an auto-loader. So, stats-wise, this gun doesn't really have that much of a difference than, say, for example, for the previous gun. And but this is where it kind of changes for me, because I'm gonna have to mention equipment earlier on, because without equipment, this gun kind of falls into the vagaries of averageness. You know, something which works, but doesn't really make that much of an impact. But with equipment, and when I say equipment, I mean specifically ventilation class 2, medium caliber gun rammer, and vertical stabilizer Mark 1, this thing becomes a god. My not 100% crew, these guys don't have any skills yet with this equipment, so unfortunately you will have to spend some extra money if you're planning to keep this vehicle at least. This gun goes from the vagaries of, it's okay, it's alright, doesn't whatever, to, holy crap, that's awesome. And if I'd just like to highlight that little stat figure, thank you very much, XVM, that is the actual reload of the gun in battle. 2.89 seconds. That's freaking awesome. I love this gun because of it. It's so lovely. Yes, it is absolutely fantastic to have. So the question will beg to you guys, what's it going to be like in a wolf pack? Well, I imagine, I haven't done it much, I've not really done many wolf packs, but I can guarantee that whoever uses this vehicle, and if they know what they're doing, they'll be deadly. I mean, I'm not much of a stats person when it comes to damage or whatever, but I will highlight this one just to prove the case. With the equipment and everything on, I've got an average damage per minute of 2,091. That's not bad for a standard shell type of 115 damage. Just think, a KV-1S with no equipment, or maybe even with equipment, tries to shoot at you. It's got at least a 13-second reload, maybe even 10 if it's got a damn good crew, which gives you 10 seconds, so at least 2 or 3 shots, maybe even high damage ones as well, to destroy itself. I guarantee that if you had an encounter with a KV-1S, I reckon you could do at least 3/4 of damage to its health before it can fire again. And also, don't forget, you've got the extra accuracy thanks to the vertical stabilizer. So there's a chance that if the KV-1S has decided to, when it reloads, it might still miss again, therefore by giving you the ability to kill it. It's just that awesome with the rate of fire that it has. And I cannot say enough how awesome it is with the equipment on. Before I put the equipment on, it was an okay tank. But now that I've got the equipment on, I love this thing. It's just that awesome. Now, on to equipment and crew skills. Now, I have already mentioned the equipment that I have got, and I'm going to have to kind of just state that you just have these 3. There isn't really any other selections that I would recommend apart from, ventilation, rammer, and vertical stabilizer. These 3 are more than enough. That's it. Don't have to worry about anything else. They are expensive, mind, especially the vertical stabilizer. I think that's 600,000 credits. So, if you really want this vehicle, I seriously recommend it as a good investment, because it is so much fun to use this vehicle with that. As for crew skills, well, once again, you probably guys will know, utilize your commander as with Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense is every commander's golden dream, and you need it. Don't forget the method of how to do it is to use a normal skill, which requires, which doesn't, isn't a perk. Train up to 100%, then train another skill to go beyond 40%, and then you can drop it, which avoids you getting the penalty. For your gunner, I highly recommend you have snapshot to 100%, as this works in conjunction with the vertical stabilizer, so it will make your gun even more accurate, which is fantastic. Then, of course, you train another skill to go to beyond 40%, then you swap it out for dead eye, then go straight back to snapshot. And then, of course, it's up to you, really, but that's my #1 recommendation for that guy. Your driver, understandably, needs to have clutch braking. Clutch braking, even at 40, even at 40 traverse speed, clutch braking is a go-to for me. I absolutely adore it. I suppose if you weren't so fussed about having clutch braking, you could go off-road driving, but either clutch braking or off-road driving. Smooth ride is a good idea, but for people who just, I guess it's a good idea to have that as well, but I kind of value that and that higher than smooth ride, because that allows extra maneuverability, whereas that kind of just focus on when you're shooting on the move, and you don't perhaps shoot on the move as much as you turn or drive. For your radio operator, I think a good skill to utilize would be signal boosting. This will extend your signal range, potentially giving you an extra advantage in battle. So that's certainly a good idea. Afterwards, maybe, I don't know, situational awareness, repairs, or relay or whatever. Nothing. I think signal boosting is the #1 skill there. And then finally, I think for your loader, I'd say maybe who's a bit of a creepy one that. Maybe have, I'd say, adrenaline rush, maybe? I've never been ammo racked. Touchwood. I've never been ammo racked or had any ammo issues with the EZ8, mainly because the armor's so shit anyway. But I'd say adrenaline rush is the most important thing, and then afterwards repairs or camo or firefighting. So that's about it for the review side of this vehicle. Let's go into a couple of replays to show what this thing can do in combat. Here we are in our first battle. And this is a tier 8 game. This was a tier 8 game, so I was very much low on the tiering list. And we were on South Coast. This is a standard match, and unfortunately I think this was the first game in my session, which is why I was kind of laggy as hell. I don't know why it does it, but at least with my computer, I found that I end up coming into the battle like either a few seconds after the game has started, or maybe if I'm lucky, a couple of seconds before, or just as it starts. I'm not entirely sure why. So instead of normally going down the hill to join my allies onto the beachhead, I instead decide to go into the town, utilizing my maneuverability as best as I can to get across the hills and get myself into a good firing position. Unfortunately, the IS-6 on the enemy team gets the first blood as our KV-1S perishes. An enemy Hellcat and a T-71 are giving our guys grief, so I try to do what I can to see if I can get a couple of shots in at the T-71 and the Hellcat. Not really doing too well at the moment. Lots of trees, too much buildings, not really being able to get a sightline on these guys. No, can't quite see. Knocking a tree over in rage. Still can't see. And then I notice an enemy vehicle, KV-13, decides to appear. So I reverse back and not looking where I'm going. Oh shit, there's a building there. And so then I take an opportunity, utilizing that mark, the vertical stabilizer. And another shot. And I just want to show you guys how fast I'm reloading there. It's so quick. And I'm still not 100% with my crew. So unfortunately I get one damaging shot on the KV-13 and another very close call / miss on the Hellcat, and he fades into obscurity. I fire one last shot in a sense of annoyance, to which then he moves up perfectly and I'm just in the wrong position, can't do a single thing. I'm like trying to see if the Hellcat's moving. I look around, I think, oh no, there is he, oh I have a shot, and it's gone, and oh, he's there again, and oh, bollocks. So unfortunately, I wasn't very useful there at all. So I instead decide to move out of that position and go to the aid of my IS-3 comrade, as unfortunately an enemy Hellcat, as our Hellcat, gets knocked out. So now it's getting quite tense as their tier 8 and 7 tank is going to have a go at our tier 8 tanks. By which point I then notice on the minimap a VK3601H. Artillery has a pep shot at someone. I'm just currently focusing on the I tier tanks when I spot the VK. I very luckily bounce a high explosive shell on the actual lower glaciers, so that's why I was puzzled at first, but now looking at the armor values, I now understand why. So, loading premium shells in case the 112 decides to appear. I'm also focusing on the VK. I load standard for the VK. I fire one shot, it bounces. Heat once again tries high explosive and fails. I go down again, I fire, and I set him on fire. And then the 112 decides to appear. And bang! Tier 8 kill! At this point, I'd forgotten I'd loaded premiums, so the VK tries throwing another high explosive shot at me again. I fire, and I set him on fire again, and he's dead. So there's another kill, which is awesome. I admit I used premium, but forgot at the time. Then I utilize another premium shot. Very luckily, it goes into the T-29. I hadn't expected it to be good. And then I load standard shells to try and close in the distance. We're dominating this game pretty well now, but it could still go tits up. I start moving up towards, and unfortunately I take my first real big hit from the AC-46 French TD, and the Gewehr Tiger gets a high I'm guessing a high damage roll at giving his teammates a chance to kill him. And another highlight of how fast this gun can goes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's how awesome this gun is with that rate of fire. It is unbelievably fantastic. I just love how troll this thing is. It's just, ah. Anyway, going back to the replay. So now that we've taken care of artillery, there's only 2 tanks remaining. The T-29, who didn't go to help his ally out, and the AC-46, which is now currently occupied with defending his own cap. So I utilize the XVM zoom out to try and see where the T-29's aiming, taking care to try and do something. I try and go for his tracks, but miss or fail. He hits the ground in front of him. I'm laughing, and then I do the same thing, so I stop laughing. I do a bit of a damage to his tracks, but unfortunately not doing anything. He decides not to shoot, and instead, I don't think he even shot it before, so he must have taken some damage. But at this point, I've destroyed both of his tracks. I'm firing underneath his ammo. He moves a little bit back, and then this moment appears. So, okay, didn't penetrate the next one. Let's see if I can try another one. Okay, that one didn't bounce. What the hell's going on? Come on. Bullshit, that went through the thing. Come on, one more shot. Oh, what the hell's going on? That's not fair. Oh, you son of a bitch! Last bloody minute of the game, my gun decides to go ark-a-dirk-a-dirk. But anyway, hopefully you guys will have seen a couple of good features of this tank. One of which definitely being the high rate of fire that allowed me to react to the VK, who for some reason didn't swap his ammo when it didn't work the first time. And the next occurrence, of course, was when I utilized it on the Gewehr-Tiger. Another feature is just how maneuverable this thing was, despite, it wasn't very maneuverable, but that said, when you can operate in the shadows, this thing is deadly in a tier 8 game. So without further ado, I'll take you to the next one. So here are the results for that game. Unfortunately, I may need to move the image a bit so I can so it won't freeze up on me, because the editor likes to, for some reason, cut the video when there's no frames, which is annoying. But generally speaking, that game was a pretty awesome victory. We got a mastery badge first class. It wasn't a premium game, but I got 2,000 double experience, so that's pretty awesome. We did a nice damage. Did 3 good amounts of critical damage to this vehicle. We also did some damage to pretty much buggered up the Gewehr-Tiger, and spotted a couple of other vehicles as well. Going for the team score, I got the most. Where is it? Yeah, I got the most. I got 1,000 experience out of that, and I almost did 1,000 damage. There you go. So I almost did I got 4th in the sense of damage, but the most in the sense of experience. So here's the second replay. This one is in mines on a standard encounter match. Standard match, that's what I meant to say. And I was joined up by Penguin and Bidden, both in their Hellcats. And this replay at first was kind of a bad disaster. Mainly because I made a rather catastrophic mistake here, which I will highlight. The enemy T-25 was pushing up towards our line. I wasn't aiming as much, and I'm not entirely sure how that happened. Either the shell went off and it hit the enemy, either it hit the M5 Stuart, or for some reason he drove into it. I'm not entirely sure, but it was my bad that he got killed, so my apologies to that player on that one. Anyway, going back into the replay, the match not starting out as best as hoped. Trying to push up, I'm taking damage. I'm making a number of mistakes here, to be honest with you. This is where it gets really kind of into that disaster zone. I'm trying to move up to the left-hand side. There's the enemy Panzer 3-4. I throw one shot into it, fire a second one, I track him again. Unfortunately, not too well. Oh, I bounce another shot, which is rather miraculous. Bidden, unfortunately, has perished, and I moved to try and get a shot, but then the T-29 decides to pop right where I could potentially get some shots on that Hellcat. I'm once again trying to search for targets, getting a bit struggling. KV2 rams into Biddenmore. That's such a nice thing to do. And at this point, I'm sort of realizing, come on. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? At first I'm thinking about pulling back, because obviously the enemy are also pushing down the left side. So it's by this point I'm like, right, okay, I've got to either move up to the top or not. My engine power isn't that great. Sod it, I'm going to have to go for it. So I charge up towards the top, focusing a bit too much on the Hellcat. Right at that point, the Tiger stops, so I bash into him. I'm like, no, don't you stop me! So now I'm desperately trying to move up. I move up, I get a shot in. The corpse of My fallen comrade once again blocks me, so that's a bit nerve-wracking, but I finally make it to cover without taking any damage. I do another damaging shot against the IS. The enemy Panzer III-4 kills the IS, which is absolutely hilarious, because he could have done so much. So now the game has certainly turned around. Now I'm on the top, hopefully going to be able to do something. At this point, our line is just about breaking. I move into position to do some damage. Do one shot, two shots. And this is what I think the fast reload comes back into its own, because of just how quickly you can fire this thing. It's ridiculous. So that's 2 kills. Enemy 88. Nah, don't go for it. And then I spot the E25. Sort of looking to see if I can do anything. I spot the VK, which was responsible for Biden's death, so I take my time. I fire, I do a bit of damage. Fire again, that one bounces. Throw another shell in, that one bounces as well. I pull back, try and wait for another shot. I pull back just in time as he tries to take a pot shot. Do what I can. I throw a couple of random shots into the distance, hoping to get some damage rolls. To no avail, just as he appears. So I decided then to focus on the Tiger and the 88 and the Tiger P, as all of those tanks were sort of charging towards our line, and this is just glorious. Coupled with a couple of low damage rolls, trying not to roll in front of these tanks. Desperately trying to move up and get a couple of kill shots in. The Churchill Mark 7 is desperately trying to hold off against them. I then start getting some great shots into the Tiger, try and go for his ammo. One more cheeky shot to the tracks, and then I can pull back. Look how much damage I've done to that Tiger. It's absolutely ridiculous. Another poppy shot. Hellcat behind us. Another shot. Then I kind of take too many chances, but then he's screwed anyway. So, took a bit too many chances perhaps, but considering the situation, I guess it wasn't so important, and we did distract the other tank long enough to be able to do something. Moving up to try and knock out that Tiger P. Not in the best of scenarios. Moving forward. Missed the first shot. Hit the second shot. And just as that happens, a freaking Studer Emil driver decides to go first. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Oh. And did too much damage to myself without doing anything to him. But yeah. So last minute, 2 kills. Rather disastrous game to begin with. Not entirely sure whether it was the M5's fault that he got killed, or whether it was just bad luck. I think it's more, I'm going to call it a heat of the moment thing. I had a shot on the T25, but unfortunately, he was in the crossfire. Who knows? Anyway, I'll take you now to the results screen. So, there are the results of this game. Once again, I have to move my mouse a bit. So, in that match, I got a first-class battle medal, or first-class medal, and I got also Confederate, which is pretty awesome. Score-wise, I got the most, being at 1,060, and damage-wise, I got second place, only losing out to Penguin's Hellcats. So unfortunately, Biden was killed off too early in the game. But working together, we did a very good job in holding off the enemy tanks and being able to outflank them. And do a shit ton of damage. That Tiger tank, I do feel sorry for him because he must have been annoyed. And once again, my apologies to the M5 Stuart that I did kill. I'm going to have to attribute that to in the middle of the crossfire moment. I think maybe if he was a few feet backwards, maybe if the shell hadn't have gone astray, because it looked like the shell went astray, which is the only other thing I can think of. So my apologies for that, but heat of the moment. So, apart from that, though, we did pretty well, doing nearly the most damage and getting the highest score. Another great example for how effective this thing is. Now, on to the summary of this vehicle. The M4A3E8, it's a good tank. It's an extremely good tank, but I'm not the best medium player out there. But I really do like this vehicle, mainly because of its high rate of fire, and I'm pretty certain that in a wolf pack this thing can be absolutely deadly to most forms. The only disadvantages that I would say that this thing does have is that it's not as maneuverable, has very terrible armor, and unfortunately you have to spend a bit of money to really get the full potential of this vehicle out. But if you don't mind spending that much money and you're not really that fussed at how fast you can go, then this thing is absolutely fantastic to utilize. You know, the gun with its drawbacks of lack of penetration, but not great damage for tier 6, I think it's made up quite well for the fact that the high rate of fire. I think it more than makes up for it. So the matchmaking aside, it can be quite annoying, but if you can work alongside people to really, work well together, then you will have a devastating effect in every game that you play with this thing. So that's about it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Apologies once again for being late, but I hope this review is as good enough to sort of satisfy your World of Tanks lust. If you like this kind of content, do feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. If you yourself are a World of Tanks player, or a YouTuber who does World of Tanks, or a YouTuber in general, if there's anything I could do to improve the overall quality of this video, anything I could do to improve my commentary, anything like that at all, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching this episode, guys. This is Crap Hunter, signing out.